Welcome to Canada's podcast.
So, Brad, Kristin, welcome to this introductory call. I'll give you a little bit of context on how we arrived here. I am an entrepreneur myself, and the time pre-COVID that I had a co-working space, and one of my colleagues really was working out of Vancouver and had a podcast back when podcasts weren't quite so prolific. He's about 10 years ago, and it was kind of new. And he grew the Vancouver podcast to quite a large audience. And then he had this vision of taking it national. So, and then they reached out to, some people that they knew in each province. And we now are a team of 9 podcasters, I think, that are really trying to share the story of what Canadian entrepreneurs are doing across the country with a much broader audience. It's for you. We've taken all the risk and and so at this point, this is a organic kind of free podcast for you guys to share the story. Obviously, our business model is that we engage sponsors, we engage advertisers like any other sort of traditional media. But we also our foremost purpose is to share the stories of entrepreneurs that are doing pretty inspiring things across Canada. So that's how we got here. At the moment, most of the work that I do is in that volunteer capacity because it's fun and I get to meet amazing people. My other hat is that I am a business consultant. So I work in innovation and trying to help amazing projects scale. So I reached out to freight farms just to find out, because I love what they're doing, right? I'm a farm girl from Southern Alberta who, we have to leave the farm because it's not sustainable. Introducing freight farms going, okay, there's got to be a better way to use square footage of land to produce food. And that's why I was sort of attracted to freight farms, thinking maybe this can actually, this tool, this technology and this, the training and the support and everything that they do can actually help more local economies become more food sovereign, if you like, or, produce more food locally. And so I contacted them really from what do you guys need to expand and do more? And they said, well, really, we need to share the stories of some of our local farmers and that are doing amazing things, and that will help them, create impact. And I said, well, I've got this podcast with Canada's podcast. Do you have any Canadian farmers that have a great story? Boom, Brad and Kristin came to light, and I said, oh my God, yes, let's capture their story and from we are a podcast that talks about entrepreneurs with purpose, but also creating social, environmental, local impact when it comes from in a super emotional, personal state, of course, that's going to have greater impact. So really, we're talking about the personal purpose as well as the business of 4 acres. So we're sort of talking about 2 different things today. So I want to just introduce you to this as a platform to share your story, hopefully grow your business, and, maybe be able to scale what you're doing for other people who, have a similar purpose as you guys. So that's my background. I'm going to totally turn the mic over and just say, where do you want to start? Let's talk about maybe your journey before starting 4 acres and why 4 acres as a business, how it came to be.
Wow, where do you want to start? I had never heard of freight farms or anything like that before 3 years ago. Yeah, it totally came to be because our son got sick with E. coli and he died. So So we started looking into other options. Where do you want me to start?
That was 3 years ago.
Such a long, 3.5 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a tipping point for us in a lot of ways in our life, and
what were you doing before that, Brad, Kristin?
We've had a farm for about 10 years now.
Okay.
Just did vegetable gardening, kind of small scale, sold at the farmers markets, and just kind of growing our own food and for a few family and friends. Not really big scale, but construction work, just I don't know, normal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in your small scale farm, prior to 3 years ago, what technologies or what considerations did you use in your, growing that has sort of shifted to 3 years ago to leveraging things like, the freight farms infrastructure and being perhaps more mindful? What are the pivots that you made in going from a small scale farm prior to 3 years ago to today? What are the major pivots for you?
We've always been supportive of like the organic idea, so we never sprayed anything on our gardens. Bugs and pull weeds by hand, and but just outdoor, really simple gardening. Freight farms obviously is a high tech indoor, higher different technologies. So it's year round. The whole point was year round because we can't grow that stuff here. One of the main points, I guess, is that we can grow it in the wintertime.
Right.
Local.
And how did you find freight farms, and why was it so important?
We just searched it online just to see what was out there. We figured hydroponics indoors is probably the only way that we can grow here in the wintertime. So we just looked up a few different companies, and that's the one that we ended up choosing to work with.
Is there any particular reason why them versus the competition?
It just seemed like they were the most, I guess, advanced that out of the few that we looked at.
Okay.
Really good support team, good to talk to and help us learn, because we had no idea what we were doing when we started it. Never done anything like that before. So really helpful getting us started. That was important.
And here you are, a traditional agricultural boutique farmer, now investing in this advanced technology to produce year round. I mean, what was your capital investment?
About $150,000 to buy the shipping container with everything in it, set up, ready to go. So
with capital investment like that, obviously you have a business plan, right? And it has to be a business in order to be able to finance. I'm assuming you financed it. Maybe that assumption. Did you purchase outright, or did you finance?
We didn't have much of a business plan. We just went in. It was less than a year after our son died, and thinking about money and business wasn't. I'm only now able to really focus on that and figure it out. So it was more just dive in and have faith that it's going to work out. So we just.
I want to take you back to what we did before. So we had we used to build homes and renovate homes and sell them. So we had a commercial and residential property that we had just sold a year prior to our son passing away. So that was like our nest egg. And we used a lot of that, well, all of it, plus remortgaged our house to buy the farm. So we had some savings aside to help us get started with this.
And you are all in at this point.
We're all in.
Yeah, there's probably better ways to go about it with business loans, and I'm just starting to learn about that now. So you don't have to, put all of our personal money into it and
Absolutely.
voting. So, but
Absolutely. Yeah. And let's talk about a little bit about day to day. What does your day to day look like with this boutique farmer?
Here at home, we have 3 kids, 1.5 years, 3.5, and 7. So our day can be pretty hectic. Coordinating with the kids, and it's nice that we work from home because a lot of times I can break from the farm and come back in and help Brad or do what we need to do. We have 2 employees that help us out at the farm as well, and they're both local. They're very close.
And then I
maybe
had a quick look at your website as far as your products, right? We've got kale, we've got mixed greens, things like that. And who buys your product?
We've been selling Farmgate. Just to friends and neighbors started it that way. Just recently, we're getting into stores now. So we're in a grocery store in Campbellford, a nearby town, and 2 more that we've just gotten into in the last month or so. So just starting that part of it, and it's going well. They're selling out pretty well and kind of demanding more. So just kind of crossing that threshold.
And so local retail stores, Farmgate are your 2 main sort of.
We started out with like a co-op that's bi-weekly. So it essentially, she connects all local farmers. So we supply her with our produce, and people shop on her website for it. It's working.
Okay. And she distributes, like, I'm going to make the assumption it would be something like a veggie box or something like that, where there's multiple growers in, one product and purchasers that can buy multiple products. Cool. Awesome. And are you at a state, and this is a personal question, so are you at a state now in the business where you can self-support?
Almost.
Okay.
Almost sustainable or viable, but
with just one freight farm?
Yeah. What do you mean by self-support? I guess that's the question.
What's that, Brett? Sorry?
What does self-support mean?
Self-support, I guess, means in my sort of definition is, are you able to sustain a family through this local business of your freight farm?
No.
Okay.
No, not. We're just looking to break even on it right now.
Okay.
It's just been such a learning curve for us. Like,
absolutely.
It can work, and the numbers can work, but we still have work to do to get there.
And what is that work? What do you know you need to do next? And I guess, let me talk about break even is your goal now. You're pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Perfect. What's the sort of forecast? And I'm only just going to project near in, like maybe 2 years. Is it a goal to get this to the point where this is your primary source of income for your family?
Not really. Like, it's really about just doing the right thing and creating the local food and giving people the choice. Like, I really don't care too much about the money. I have to, because if I don't, then we don't have a business.
Not sustainable, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's all it is for me. If we can make a business and turn a profit, then we can expand. And
let me share my kind of 2 cents on that idea about. I know there's a bit of a steer away from profit and business, et cetera, but at the end of the day, we want you to be profitable in business because we need the food. And if you're not producing it, then the food's not available, which is really the number one priority, is to make, safe, organic, good food available to families. And two is, we'd like you to continue to keep, we being the proverbial we, would like you to keep going with this, because if you can make it purpose driven, and I realize the money is not it, but your family has to eat, right? They still need to, go to school and pay rents and all of that lovely stuff in our systems that we need to. So we want you to be viable, even if viable really is, and resilient is really more the maybe position that I'd love to see for you versus, it's not so much the money profit mentality. It's the, can we do this again and again, right? Like, can we do this for the Bells? Can we do this in other places? And it's really getting that insight on what it takes. So you're 3 years in to a startup phase where you're break even. I actually think that's pretty amazing because of the learning curve.
Yeah.
That it takes, right? As far as what works, who's going to buy, who's interested, who cares about the quality of the product. Practicing with your products and your yield, I would assume, has been quite a journey.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? How have you landed on the products that you've got? And you've got 2 employees already, right? So, and what are they helping? Are they helping with yield, or what are they doing on the ground?
So they mainly help with the harvest, which consumes the majority of the time in the farm.
Okay.
And they help with some cleaning, because that's also, you need to keep the farm clean. But the majority of our time is spent harvesting product.
And then how do you get it? I mean, obviously Farmgate is there at your place, so that's reasonably easy. How do you get it to stores?
So we deliver it. Yeah.
That's
once a week or bi-weekly, we make a delivery. And the majority of our stops are no further than an hour from us. So we also do like pickup points. So the furthest city would be Peterborough, an hour away. So we would deliver there, but we also have a pickup point at Brad's parents' house. And then there's customers that buy in Peterborough that would come to their house and also pick up. So, which is essentially like Farmgate, right?
Yes. And I mean, even that Farmgate, what has been your biggest barriers to, I guess, getting the small business of organic vegetable growing to more people?
Just learning how to do it, just getting it all set up. Once it's running, people love it. There's really no competition. The quality is amazing compared to the typical stuff that you get at the store.
Yeah, the shelf life.
Not to mention all the other.
The shelf life is incredible as well.
Yeah.
So people are we've never had a bad comment. We always have very positive feedback from our products, and everyone's blown away by how long it keeps. Because the majority of the stuff you buy when you purchase it, you're already picking through it because it's been in a truck, right? It's probably 2 weeks old by the time it's hitting your shelf.
Yes.
So ours would be 48 hours max by the time it's hitting the shelf and you're buying it. So yeah, I would agree with Brad that the majority is learning how to grow the products and how to troubleshoot if you're seeing something in the farm, how to solve that with your crops. We've done some experimenting also what people like. So really zoning in on what is our top sellers and working with that, which is our spring mixes.
Now, when you say experimenting, Kristin, how did you experiment?
Just try lots of varieties of plants.
Okay.
Yeah, just lots of different varieties.
And then
you might try multiple different kinds before you find one that you're happy with that works and that produces what you want as an end result.
So you've got kind of the experimenting for two things, sort of the desirability from your customers, mm-hmm. and then viability from can we grow it? Can we produce enough Is it good, is it a good production variety? So I would imagine that those two experiences really have to merge and converge.
Yes, they do.
And you found the spring mixes are the most popular?
Yes. Yeah. They are. I also found through experimenting that I can leave them growing in my farm longer. So I've reduced my labor on seeding and transplanting. So I'm able to use those plants longer because I hand pick every leaf and make them.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of love.
Yeah, so just going back to that, that's the logistics. So I'm imagining as I look at some of the images of the freight farm, so you don't actually just take the whole lettuce, for instance, or the spring mixture out of the pod. You're actually harvesting the leaves and keeping that for regrowth?
Yes. So originally, in the beginning, I was harvesting the whole head, and then I realized through trial and error that this is not viable. That if I can leave this in and pick the leaves, and it will keep growing for multiple harvests.
Interesting.
All that time in.
Okay.
Works for the farm. So it makes it a more viable crop for us.
So in that, then you're bagging the leaves then and shipping them?
Yeah, so we have big totes and we use multiple different leaves in our spring mix. So it's really a work of art. And we bag it and tag it and it goes out. We weigh it. Yeah.
I'm only sharing because my mom was a spin farmer. Which was a small plot intensive farmer. And she had about 4 spin farms around an urban containment area. And she ran this farm with the household deliveries and the bagging and going to market, right? She did the same. So she had a delivery service and then she went to markets. I've never seen anybody work so hard in my whole entire life. As far as up hours, bagging, and she had quite a variety of seeds. But honestly, I swear to God, it was like a, retirement passion project for her. And she was working easily 12 hours a day on this farm because it's so seasonal. And so I feel, I can imagine what is going on in your house right now. Hopefully you've got your 7-year-old child labor involved. And then so far, I can imagine.
As much as we can, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I would like to go back a little bit to the personal sensitive topic about safety with food. I can't imagine losing a child. So that's, I'm just saying, I feel it. I've got a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old myself. I would love, and what's his name?
Our son was named Cooper.
So it's difficult to talk about the loss, and I don't want your loss to be undermined at all. Again, 3 years after Cooper's left us, and here we are telling this story, and I give you a lot of credit for being able to share this story. E. coli and other sort of foodborne viruses and diseases are not something to be taken lightly. What has been your experience in finding out about E. coli in particular, or anything else? And, why is this such an important topic to be raised for families?
I think before we were affected with this, I never thought about it at all. It never crossed my mind. If I saw something on television, I would read it and think nothing else of it after, because I feel that there's not enough emphasis put on the fact of how dangerous foodborne illness is. It is not just a stomach bug, especially in kids under 5. It affects them more. And we also don't talk about the fact that it's on the rise and why is it in our food and where is it coming from? No one talks about that. We need to start talking about that, how our food is being produced and why it is even there. And I think the more it happens, we're almost being desensitized to it. That it's the norm, right? Oh, okay. The odd time our lettuce or salad bags are being recalled. Okay. Just another recall, but it should not be like that. And now leafy greens have more recalls and have a higher chance of having E. coli in them than ground beef. So we need to start asking, why is that happening? And changing something about it.
And have you discovered any of those whys yourself?
The food production for feedlots. So in close proximity to these farms of where they're growing and irrigating the crops seems to be the number one cause of how it's leaching into our food.
There's 100,000 cows in a feedlot, and then across the street they're growing leafy greens.
Right.
That's how it is. It's happening all the time. So the one that in 2018 October, you probably heard about it on the news. It was international news. Canada, US recall of all romaine. So that was a really, really big recall. But there's smaller recalls that you would never hear about happening all the time.
Well, and one question I have is, how do you hear about these recalls? We rely on our distribution centers, like our stores, to.
Yeah, there's Stop Foodborne Illness website. They have a
Crazy.
A thing that you sign up to, and then it'll send you emails when there's a recall that's in your area. So we've signed up to that, and then you can see all these other ones. But if I wasn't on that, I would never hear about them. They're not on the news. They're not. You only hear about a few of them. There's a mushroom recall this week. Did you hear about that one? Pretty big one. I think it's all across Canada. Salmonella, I think, and mushrooms. Yeah, it's everywhere. It's a lot more than I'd ever thought, and it's really underreported too. The ones that we're learning about, it's way worse than what you can even read about and find out about.
Kristin, you were going to add something?
Well, I just, you're saying how we find out about it. We do rely on our grocery stores to protect us, right? If the food is unsafe, we rely on them to take the food off. But if it's just an advisory, that's up to the grocery store. They do not have to take that off the shelf. So sometimes there will be an advisory. So it's up to you that they advise you not to eat that particular food because it may be contaminated. But unless it is recalled, then restaurants and grocery stores do not have to take that off the shelf and can sell it to you.
And I'm going to go back to your comment about the statistics. We see something in the news, or we hear a story about a recall in another province or in another area. And I agree with you. I think we tend to dismiss or say, oh, well, either it's not that serious or somebody will look after us.
Yeah.
Right. I think there's this, the grocery stores will look after us. They'll take it off their shelves if they deem it important. The doctors will look after us if we get sick.
The food inspection agencies.
The food inspection agency, the government agencies that are maybe testing to see quality of foods. I mean, there's an awful lot of I'll call it outsourcing of personal safety for food, which is the fuel that keeps us healthy and keeps us energized and lets us live every day. And so, I'm taking a little bit of caution as well, just from your story, which is how much personal responsibility should we be trying to get back on, food, which is our food and water being our maybe housing. Those three things are really the pillars to our health and well-being. What are your thoughts on that?
100%.
Mm-hmm.
How can you outsource anything like that? It's not working. That's how the system's set up, but it doesn't work. They're doing the best they can with what they have, I think. I've talked to some people in the Canadian Food Inspection Agency specifically about the recalls with lettuce and how they're handling it. And the people that I talk to are doing the best they can, I feel, with what they have. But it's just the way they're growing it is just so horrible. It's just impossible to fix. And it's going to keep happening.
Right? Do we leave it as impossible to fix, or do we start changing things at a personal level? And this is why I think your story is just so, so important to share, that it is doable.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the only way. I've tried to, work with the government or fight them or, the industry, whatever, but it's hopeless. The only way is if we do it. That's the only way. Completely replace that with something that does work.
And so if you could, so two things for you and your story and your longevity of this business is, if you could wave a magic wand and say, these three things would help us get to viable, sustainable, enough for both your family, but also for your community, be able to supply food to your community. What are the 1, 2, or 3 things that you would love to go, boom, here's what I'd love to happen?
I would like to see government funding more of this and helping farmers out. They help out with other things, but why not hydroponic farming? Something that gives more. It's more local, right? So it's more of, we're controlling our food source. We're not relying on these other countries to do it for us without any, what I see, much regulation. They say there's regulations, but I don't. This is what we could do to sustain farmers here in Canada. So it would, because it's so expensive to get started, I feel that that's why we don't maybe see as many farmers getting into it here. And in Canada, there is more, I think, overhead costs, in the winter for electricity and stuff, that maybe if it was growing, maybe in the United States, they wouldn't have those same overhead costs, but it is doable. They have them in Alaska.
Right.
Yeah.
Second on your wish list.
I don't really care about the government too much, so I wouldn't ask for them to get involved and do it. They're run by other things. The companies the multi-billion-dollar companies that are producing our food today, kind of, I feel like they have a lot of control in the food inspection and the safety and the regulations and how it gets reported and what we know about it, unless you really dig into it. So I think it has to be more organic, just real people, entrepreneurs doing it. And maybe talking to you and helping us make a viable business. And then if it's viable, other people can do it.
Absolutely. So talking to business coaches, getting this viable faster might be a second wish list so that more people are doing it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Number 3 on the wish list.
Mm-hmm.
Good time to think about this. It's a good question. I don't have a magic wand, so third one. We come back to it.
Of course we can.
Wish list. If I had a magic wand, all right.
Magic wand fairy, because it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah.
So,
should ask my 7-year-old son.
You got to put it out there. You got to say it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. No, that's good. You're
okay.
Right.
So we'll come back to wish list number 3.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about the let's assume that the solution is to, I'll use language like there's core business and then there's edge business. And I see what you're doing as an edge business. It's innovative, it's boutique, it's hyper local. It's all about, the healthiest, most sustainable food options. And if you could scale your operation, it might mean you could feed more people from a local perspective. And I think, Kristin, you said instead of relying on imports and mass production farmers, we can actually, start a movement of viable organic farmers that, that this is one solution. Let's start with leafy greens because it's a very vulnerable product for, disease and whether it's E. coli or salmonella, and yet it's one of the most healthy foods for us. So if we start with your product mix and say, let's grow this movement of boutique organic farmers, how can we do it at scale? I mean, taking your learning, it's not easy. You're at the 3-month mark. You've really done a lot of experimentation. Can we take what you've learned and share it to say, listen, this is what you need to start with here in Canada. Here's what the consumers are asking for. I mean, is that something that you can share?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, we can save people 2 years worth of experimenting.
Wouldn't that be fabulous?
We're close to that point where we can write it down and send you, here's what to grow, how to grow it. And within 5 weeks of getting a container shipped to your property, you could be harvesting.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That would be an amazing thing. I know you say that loosely, but to me,
it is. Yeah.
List number 3 for me is that guide, right? That how to fast your freight farm experience to learn from the other farmers. I'm sure you're not the only ones, right? Like, I'm sure there's other freight farmers that could collaborate on a booklet or publication like that.
Yeah.
Meaning that it takes away some of the risk, and we might actually get some funders that are willing to invest in those, and I mean, freight farms is how we came together, but you have other suppliers. You've got your seed suppliers, you've got your pod suppliers. I mean, you've obviously, given your passion and your stories, you've thought a lot and researched a lot, even about finding the best suppliers. Can you talk a little bit about your seed and pod suppliers, or anybody else that's in your essential partner mix?
Seeds we get from Vessie's and Johnny's, 2 seed companies. Yeah. I don't think we researched it too much. We'd bought off them before just for our gardening. And peat plugs, where do you get them from?
Zip Grow here. I think they're located out of Cornwall. So they were one of the first companies actually that we looked into, because they sell vertical towers. But you would have to create your own building to put them in. So the cost was higher, where freight farms come.
Say that again, Kristin. What was that?
Zip Grow. So they're the first company that we looked into, and they sell you the towers to grow in, but you would have to provide the building. So when we did the cost, it was twice as much as what freight farms offered us with the prefab building ready to go. But they sell the peat plugs. So that's who we get our peat plugs through them.
Okay, interesting. And I mean, even just that knowledge, right? Here's some suppliers, but we went with freight farms, and here's some seed vendors, and this is why we went with those guys. And let's get 3 years of experimentation down into 3 months, and get your organic farm launched faster. The guidebook, the webinar, the training seminar, the half-day event would, I think, be pretty amazing to put on, and that would be really neat. I would love to see that happening, and maybe you're the impetus and Kickstarter to something like that. So those are some of my wish list items. I'm going to go back. Have you thought yet of a third wish list?
Yeah, like a new economic model for food. The way that it works now, it's profit comes first and at all cost. That's it. Let's make money. Let's get really big. Let's control it all. It doesn't work. That's inequality, and it's destructive. It's killing people. So I think everybody should be involved in it. If we have sustainable food, instead of us personally getting rich by selling food, if we were to expand this, take that and reinvest it back into more sustainable food. And only that. We just need enough to live, and that's it. I don't want any more than that.
Yes.
And if you keep rolling it into it, then could you have a snowball with the money effect of it too, expanding? That makes sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I love the fact that you went about as big picture as it can get.
Yeah.
A new economic model for food. Okay, boom, we can work on that. I love it.
Yeah.
And but it does, Brad, it does start one shipping container boutique farm at a time, right? It really does.
Yeah.
And this is part of why I wanted to share your story, is because I believe that one small step towards the right thing to do. And I'd love to try and rally some additional supporters. And, there's lots of people who have a similar mindset to you, which is, it's really about the health and well-being of people first, and food is the primary tool to do that. Let's make sure it's not poisoning our people, right? Make sure that it's not, it's not a capitalist project alone. We need to shift, and I love your wording, shift the economic model for food.
Yeah.
And if this story can help stimulate, that's great. What would you love to see as an action follow-up post-podcast? What do you think is the very next step that we could take to maybe get some of those magic wand wish lists into action?
I don't know. Yeah, good questions. Wait and see what happens. Let's just let it be organic. Who's interested in what we're doing, and how can you help? How can we help you with what you're doing?
Yeah,
work together. Where's the rest of the superheroes who are going to change the world?
So I would like your permission. I love that. Find the superheroes that are going to change the food. There are many that we've interviewed, both on Canada's podcast, but also what's called the Next Gen Economy podcast. And Canada's podcast is really quite a Canadian audience. Of course, we have, because it's digital, we have global audience as well. But the Next Gen Economy podcast is really exactly like you said. It's about the next generation of thinkers and change agents who are doing the right thing. And we're sharing their story in this podcast. And there's our community member is 17,000 change agents, coaches, consultants around the world that are trying to reinvent new business models. So I would really like permission to share your story with both of those audiences.
Yeah.
Okay. Yay. Let me ask, what is if we're going with the organic flow, there's a couple of ways that, they can reach out to me, but also can we connect with you post podcast? What's the best way?
We can do this again, just phone, email.
Okay. And what is your, the best email to connect with you?
4 acres hydroponics @gmail.com.
Or show up at your Farmgate and buy some produce and have a conversation.
Yep.
Just curious, where do you live, guys? What's 4 acres?
Sterling, Ontario.
Okay. So
Where are you?
to suggest that when do you have produce at your Farmgate year round?
Hi.
Hi. the reason why we're doing this, by the way. Next generation. Love the kid bomb. So, and so they're in Sterling. And so do you have produce at your Farmgate year round?
Yeah. We don't have a store set up. So if you call ahead or email, then we can have an order ready for you and you can come pick it up.
All right. So that's this email and or give you guys a call literally and place an order and go have a conversation and you know, you guys can be this sort of stimulus for the next generation of superheroes coming together to have boutique organic farms across Canada. And certainly because of the shipping container, I love it in coastal areas where shipping containers are prolific, you know, and we have a cross Canada train line that we could drop off these.
Yes.
So easy.
We needed to.
Yeah.
Perfect. Brad, Kristin, I want to thank you for sharing your story, and we'll direct people to your story is also on your website, and we wish you and your family all the best. And I'm just going to take this little juicy morsel of your story and amplify it as much as possible. And let's get that new economic model for food movement amplified.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks for your help.
So is there anything else that we haven't yet talked about that's an important part of this conversation?
So I don't think we broached the subject about our food transparency, that there is no transparency in our food production. And that's one of the biggest problems. When we tried to research and track back where our food was being produced, we were told by head office at Loblaws that they have non-disclosure agreements with their farmers, and they were unable to tell us exactly where that food was coming from.
Wow.
Why? Why do you have a non-disclosure agreement? Who are you protecting? Are you protecting me or are you protecting them? So we were left in the dark to find out exactly where those greens were coming from.
Well, that's interesting. I expected that. So, maybe I'll give Loblaws a call on this journey and see if they can answer that question. You know, why is there an NDA in comparison to, you know, in our co-working space, we had a fellow that was farm to table. We brainstormed this idea, and there's these microchips that you can get that you put on a product, and let's just say it's your leafy greens or your tote, and it tracks the whole journey from literally farm to table. And at any point, you know, when it's just a QR code that you can scan the whole thing, and it sees what vehicle it was transported on, you know, so you can see the whole life of the product. And I think the chips, just to give you an idea, were something like 6 cents per unit to produce. And suddenly that tiny little bit of technology, you know, could pretty much eliminate the lack of transparency on where your food comes from.
It definitely could. It would be priceless, because it is so hard to track back where that it came from to begin with, because there's so many large farms coming together in these warehouses for packing, and then it's being distributed from there. So there's so many points at which you have to stop and re-examine, okay, who's coming into this point? And then it's like a spider web effect. So with us, it's essentially a direct line, right?
Yes.
And it would be nice to see that with other farmers, their direct line. And why shouldn't that be something we'd be proud of? I'm proud of our direct line to us.
Absolutely.
With other farmers. Why are they proud?
Eliminating we can't even get into a conversation about food waste. I mean, the crazy amount of food waste in the system that I've done a little bit of research on.
40%, is it? Overall.
Sorry, Brad?
Is it 40 or 50% of food, I've heard, in North America?
Right? It's crazy.
Garbage? Yeah.
Goes in the garbage. And I just think it's going back to abundance. We have the potential to have food abundance.
Yeah.
If our economic models or distribution models are shifted. And my gut instinct is that the shift to hyper local and being able to track, right, from farm to table, it's not just something that we gave lip service to in, as a brand identity for foodies in the 80s. It's actually now becoming a critical and essential, shift that needs to be made with supply chain disruption and longevity and personal health as a priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been fabulous having you guys. Kristin, thanks for bringing up that last point. Once again, you can contact Brad and Kristin at 4 Acres Hydroponics. Email. I would also encourage you to show up at their Farmgate and get some or pre-order some organic produce if you're in the Sterling, Ontario region. And if you are in the food industry or you are a boutique farmer and you are as passionate about Brad and Kristin to look at organic food production in your local area, we encourage you to reach out to us and contact us. And once we have, let's say 100 people that are interested and that have said yes, we will absolutely follow up with some initiatives to bring people together and collaborate on what is really the next step to make some scalable change happen. Brad, Kristin, thanks again for being on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thank you. Although,
now, are you actually officially organic?
No, we're not organic because we can't be certified organic because we're hydroponic. There's in Canada, you have to be growing in soil in order to pass whatever inspections they do to get that certified organic label. So since we're growing in water and we have no soil in the farm, they can't give us that certification.
It sounds like a perhaps a criteria that is old school, right?
Well, I think it's by design because this threatens that industry. Or hydroponics has the ability to take over a good part or all of that and eliminate the need for the massive soil farms that are. So they've designed it so that we can't get in it, just to slow the progress of this technology, I think.
Well, and so maybe for the purposes of our audience is, the official label of organic, I am very aware because of some local farmers sharing with me, is very time consuming, resource intensive, and clearly technically there's some criteria like growing in soil that makes it very difficult at times for somebody to actually, that's another potential barrier, that if organic is really the label that people are looking for, at the consumer, that got to be other options and to grow the industry of organic farming and still be desired by the consumer.
Transparency.
Yeah, transparency, more awareness with what hydroponics is, because there is a lack of knowledge, a general lack of knowledge of what hydroponic growing is. And we have been turned down by retail places because they only sell organic and we have no label. However, ours I would consider better than organic. We don't use anything, where organic farmers have a list of certified products they can use and still maintain that label. Also, you talk about food waste or the shipping, right? Food seed to plate. How long is that, right? That it is, our food is still alive when it hits your plate.
And Kristin, you said something that actually surprised me, which is the shelf life is incredible.
Yes, the shelf life of our products. I just had some for a salad last night. It was harvested March 16th. So yesterday was April 5th, and it was still crunchy. You would not know as if it was harvested yesterday. It amazes me. I'm still blown away at how long this product lasts.
Wow. That's fantastic. And so really we need to wave another magic wand, which is we need another sort of, knowledge center and maybe food labeling around hydroponic food. And the fact that this is maybe the evolution of food on scale that's healthy and, from farm to table, we can grow that movement of consumers.
Yeah.